here is a roll with one of my mates, Alex, a white belt. And obviously I have 20 years of experience, so I'm just explaining that a lot of the time when we have a roll with new people, it's kind of expected that experienced people just kind of smash or really try out all their favorite moves on the new people. However, I'm explaining that has a time and a place, don't get me wrong. However, I do find that it is far better to, I don't really agree with flow roll, and I don't really agree with let them work kind of mentality. My opinion is slow down and don't really force winning the grip fights. See, I'm just kind of pulling on the head a little bit there, looking to make, just trying to give him some real reactions, but not really gripping hard, a bit of a forward shift. And you can see there, the gap between his elbows and his knees has got massively exposed. So that leaves him nicely open to a sweep. I sort of looked this through before, but you kind of see, if he leaves that exposed, see that right leg of his is back, makes it easy for me just to kind of like reach over his back and step over into like an octopus hip bump kind of a position. He's trying to reverse the situation on me, and I'm actually being quite cognizant of staying in front of the camera here. Alex does a fantastic job there of, when he's realizing he's reversed, locking up a half guard, and then keeping the space, using me closing up the space to attack a Kimura. He's kind of let go of the Kimura there, and I'm saying, no, go back for that. That was bloody good. Like that's sick. I want to actually get out of that or be submitted. So, and there I wanted to also explain that Kimuras are a fantastic tool to learn. They give you a lot of success early on. They're handy at all levels of the sport. You don't want to get over-reliant on them, as I did earlier on in my journey. But here I'll explain that when you're in an inferior position or when you're on the bottom, you are trying to squeeze your elbows together, almost straighten out both theirs and yours arms. It's not until we get into an advantageous or an attacking position that we can really start to like bend our elbows and start to make the back of their hand go straight towards the back of their head. So I'm kind of like holding my own thigh here, just keeping weight on the top, just kind of making it a little bit awkward. I'd be happy for him to get the submission, but I'd also be happy for me to get out of it. I'll only escape the submission though, or get out of a position if it doesn't require a ton of effort and doesn't require me going really hard. See how I'm demonstrating here? I'm trying to keep my elbows squished together. The best way that he can defend is get his hand in between my elbows or his knee in between my elbows. In the trying of that, I've managed to get like a sweep. And then I'll talk about when we get into more advantageous positions, that's when we can bend our elbows in, we can like keep their body on their side, or different ways of finishing the Kimura. But when we're in an inferior position, we want our arms straight, our elbows really tight together. See, elbows really far apart. See, for me to defend that there, I can put my knee in, I can probably roll over the top and put my hand or my knee in through the position. Even though he does have a half guard thing, we'll see what I do when we come up here. So immediately see my knees trying to go push his hands apart. Now my hand is trying to pry his elbows apart, so it makes it impossible for him to finish that Kimura. Even though I'm not trying hard, not really keeping my base, the Kimuras, you, from an inferior position, really keep your elbows tight when you go on the attack. Then we can open up our elbows, then we can move that hand towards their upper back or the back of their head kind of a position. I will say, another thing while we're still in the Kimura situation here, I'll continue with the Kimura. Yeah, I'm just talking about breaking the grips, not letting them control that space underneath our elbow, because when we're on the top position, like he is here, we're not on the bottom, we're not in an inferior position, so we can immediately, as soon as we get that grip, we can start to attack. So I'm saying drag that elbow across the center line, but while you're doing that, keep your own elbow heavy across their lower ribs so they don't crowd that space. Then we use our hand to block the back of their head, and then we can attack. But see how Alex flopped over onto his hip there? I feel like that's a bad habit, and that is a habit that you'll get into when you roll with people that always beat up on you, because you'll end up going back to guard. And when you go back to guard, that's not bad for keeping ourselves safe in the gym, but I never want my white belts to resort back to guard. It's just building bad habits in case they ever need to use jiu-jitsu for self-defense. However, now we're going to look at the Kimura position here. So here, he tries to step up again rather than fall back to a hip. However, that's creating too much space. That'd allow me to get my upper back to the floor. See, I could easily get my shoulders to the floor. That would allow the Kimura to not really work. Talking through the grip break here. So now, before you actually move that hand backwards like he has to get the tap, we want to isolate that far arm if possible, squeeze our knees together, and attach their elbow up to our chest. That way we can pull out all the slack, makes the submission way stronger. So we're talking about that here a little bit, talking about dragging that elbow across the chest, blocking the head so that I can step over. Then see how my left knee is already isolating that arm. You can see I pause there to make sure. Now I can squeeze my knees together and get a nice, easy position. So I'll just, oh, look at that lovely greybeard grapplers there. My mate Shano hooked us up this, can't even say Rashi there. I'll put a link to his store there below because these are quite cool. I do have my own branded grapple culture Rashis, but while we're moving around, it's a little bit difficult for me to order them in. I've got a few, but yeah, it's an extremely limited run. Once I'm in one place for a few months, then I'll organise some more Rashis. But for now, definitely check out Shano's Greybeard Grapplers. If you're over 40, you got to have a little bit of age on the mats if you're going to be wearing the greybeard. Now, I'm not sure what I'm talking about, so I'll scrub this through to, I know exactly what I'm talking about here. Pressure. If we want to feel like we're way heavier, so I'm like a 155 pounder here, think about the person on the ground as a cylinder. If we put our hand on the top and pushed, it would sort of roll, but it would slip off. If we put our chest on the side and pushed, it would just be our effort. But if we put our weight at 2 o'clock, then we can use our strength as well as our weight to drive that cylinder forward. And now if we angle off to the side, see how I've dropped my left hip there, that's putting more of a point pressure. And then if we use our hands, we can use the strength of our arms to add more weight. We can also use our hands as wedges under their far shoulder and crossface and that kind of thing. So it makes, say, somebody like me that weighs 155 pounds feel more like I weigh 210, 220 pounds. So let's scrub forward a little bit while I'm not doing too much. A little more demonstration of putting weight down. There is, I think, we discussed one more thing. Right. What was it? Yes, this is where I talked to Alex more about that self-defense aspect, where we see how he's left his hips drop all the way to the mat. Now, if I was really rolling quick, I'd have capitalized on that and he wouldn't have been able to get back up. And think about if it's a self-defense situation, we need to be able to run. So obviously we're playing the game of jiu-jitsu, so that's fine. It's a bit of a octopus back-taking scramble there. And you can see there that I'm not forcing anything, I'm not moving fast, I'm letting him kind of work, and it creates a lot more movement and a lot more enjoyment in the rolls. Also, once again, it also means that it exposes bad habits that he's gotten into there, like falling down, which would be terrible for any self-defense situation. But moving slow means I can just about get to the point of that head arm choke, and then I can move straight to the back. Obviously he defends his back fairly well, and I'm not extremely trying hard to take it, but I feel like that little scramble that we just had there demonstrates pretty nicely exactly what I'm talking about. I think we're just about done. This isn't extremely exciting to watch, so let's get to here. Yeah, nice. See, I'm dragging that forearm across the body again. And he does a good job of just sliding me across and exposing my back. I always say this, a lot of the time rolling with new people like white and inexperienced blue belts, people go, oh, they don't give you the right reactions. Sometimes it's great and it's a benefit to you to get the wrong reaction and see how in that situation it exposed my back. So sometimes it's a good thing. I mean, maybe not if you're getting ready for a competition or something like that, but don't sleep on the white belts. Let me see. Are we going to come back into frame here? Or am I going to scrub it forward? Here we go, coming back into the frame. I'm demonstrating how, just keeping my shoulders offline and a bit of a, look at that, head through double just to get it back onto the frame. I'm pretty sure we're close to the end of time. But see, I'm happy just making space, getting on the bottom, defending a dast, but the dast didn't come. But that's exactly right. White belt reactions. So like a lot of the time, a purple belt would have immediately tried to dast me, and I've defended that. But sometimes, it's just those reactions that you can still learn quite a lot from. I'm just trying to, I think I mentioned to him before about the distance between the elbow and the knee. So I'm just kind of like overemphasizing the fact that I've pointed this out to you, you're leaving that open. So I'm going to do it slowly, but I'm pulling that elbow away. Once he tries to close that, he exposes his neck. I'm not going to aggressively jump on a guillotine or a anaconda, but you get the point. And looking at the timer is pretty low, so I think this is about the end of the roll. But if you want to see more breakdowns like this, do us a favor, drop a comment and like this video. But I also have a school group that I will leave a link to below as well. But let us know what you think and what you'd like to see more of, and I'll chat to you on the next one.